Greetings, everybody. Um, Welcome to week 2. I know we haven't seen each other, but we are in week 2, and I wanted to go over chapters 2 and 3 with you. And so we are going to go over these topics. Now, I will tell you, I will do the labs in a separate video. In fact, you might even want to try the labs on your own. But I am going to do them. So feel free to look at those at a separate time. I just want to make sure I'm sharing the right thing right now. Stop sharing and share again. And share screen 2. Okay, good. Share. All right. All right. So yeah, this is what we're going to do. And so let's go over, let's start chapters 2 and chapter 3. The lecture part of chapters 2 and chapter 3. All right. So, graphical user interface design guidelines. There are guidelines that we recommend as you design a user interface. And by the way, if you haven't figured it out, graphical user interface is also a GUI. So you'll sometimes hear that word. All right. So first thing is we want to make sure that the interface flows vertically or horizontally. And you always start in the upper left-hand corner. So this is just a standard that we use. And in this case, what happens is when they tab through these, they'll move left to right, and then they'll move up and down, okay? So if we were to tab through these, it would do this, 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 and this, okay? Another way you could design the same form would be something like this. And it's up to you to decide which way you think is better, okay? Guideline number 2, group related controls together. So using either white space or empty space, put all the same controls. You can even use a group box. There's other controls that you can use. So the first example contains the order information in a group box control. Okay, so right here you can see the outline of that. It's a good way to keep all your controls together. And this group box is actually an object that you will see as you do Visual Studio. All right. Use a label to identify each text box in the user interface. Okay, for example, all these have labels, and you can actually make these things move together. These two objects move together. Okay, you can attach them to one another. You should also put labels for your output. Okay, the label text should be meaningful. Be from 1 to 3 words and appear on one line. Left align the text within the label and position the label either above or to the left. Display a meaningful caption on the face of each button. Okay, so like submit is a pretty common one. The caption should indicate the action of the button will be performed when clicked. Enter the caption using the book title capitalization. Place the caption on one line from 1 to 3 words. Other interesting notes about button control. Each button control in a group stacked vertically should have the same height and width. Each button positioned horizontally should have the same height. And the most commonly used buttons are typically placed first in the group. Align borders of the control whenever possible to minimize the number of different margins appearing in the interface. So we want to try to align these, okay? It makes your form a lot more readable and professional. So what are some of the things that you might design a little bit different on this form, on this welcome form? I would have put colon by the first name and last name. And yeah, maybe just a little bit more direction. And maybe a little bit better welcome sign. Okay, but other than that, it's pretty neat. By the way, you can control whether the minimize or maximize or the exit controls are displayed here or not. Okay. So another guideline number 6, don't use a bunch of graphics. If the graphic is used for just simply looking nice, or use a small graphic and place in location where it will not distract the user. Selecting fonts. Use one font for all the text in the interface. An example would be Sagoo UI. Use no more than 2 different font sizes. Okay. Avoid italics and underlining because both font styles make text difficult to read. And limit the use of bold text to titles, headings, and other key items. Colors. GUI designing colors. Build the interface using black, white, or gray. Only add color if you need to, if you have a good reason to do so. Use white and off-white and light gray for background. Use black for the text. These are just easier. They're easier for the eye. Never use a dark color for the background or a light color for the text. A dark background is hard on the eyes, and a light colored text can be blurry. Yeah, almost you can't see it sometimes. Limit the number of colors on a form to 2 to 3, not including white, black, and gray. The colors should never you use should complement each other. Never use colors as the only means of identification for an element in the interface. In other words, indicate different things, not just by colors, but also by your words. Use your words appropriately. I will say this right here determines whether your interface is professional or not professional, whether people take it serious or they don't take it serious. And we can look at different websites, and some of the websites, because of the fonts they use, because of the colors, the bright colors they use, look very unprofessional. And I don't pay attention. It automatically makes me not want to take that website serious. But when it looks professional, then it makes me take that website a little bit more serious. Here's a website, a GUI that has a lot of stuff going on. And automatically it bothers me. Okay. Now, I understand that sometimes you have to do a lot of stuff on a form. And for somebody that has to have a lot of stuff done on the form, they can get used to it. The problem is there's so much going on here. Okay. Um, and I know it's when you click one of these that these things will display. Okay. Um, and sometimes you need all this. If you're on the phone, you might need all this. I just think this is too busy. And I will tell you, I have designed forms that have done even more than this. Okay. But the user interface, the user gets really used to the interface and it helps them to have all that on a form. But there's a lot on this form. You can always use additional forms. For example, if I clicked on this, it could take me to an additional form. Uh, I could use a list to display some of this information. Okay. Um, it's just some of my comments on that. This is busy. And I don't like the graphics. You don't need graphics here. Okay. Uh, yeah. Even these graphics, uh, I mean, these two don't make any kind of sense. Okay. The only one that makes sense is my folder, but all the rest does not make sense. Okay. Uh, Setting the border style for text box or label, keep the border style property of the text box at the default fix 3D. Keep the border style property of the caption labels. Okay. These are the labels next to a text box at the default setting of none. Set the border style to fix single for labels that are going to display output. Okay. So sometimes you use labels to display output. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Avoid setting labels, border styles to fix 3D since it will not be editable by the user. You want to differentiate between editable and non-editable, and using border styles as part of that. And try to set the auto size property to false for label controls that display output. Just know how much output you're going to have to display. Okay. Access keys. Access keys are a way of quickly getting to a button or control. Okay. Assign unique access keys to each input control that the user wants to quickly jump to by using an Alt key on that. When assigning access key to a control, use the first letter of the control's caption, identifying a label, unless some other letter provides a more meaningful association. One of the ones that you'll see quite often is when we say accent, they a lot of times people assign Alt X to that. If you can't use the first letter and no other letter proves a more meaningful association, then use a distinctive consonant. Lastly, use a vowel or a number. All buttons should have an access key. Okay, so all your user buttons will have an access key. All right. One of the things you're going to do on your first assignment is you're going to do a toe chart. So what is a toe chart? A toe chart stands for task, object, event. It is a chart that a developer can use to define the three different parts of a Windows application. And they're going to be separated into three different areas. What are the user's needs for the application, input and output? What are the user's interface, referred to as a control, should be used for that task? And what object will need coding or events procedures to be programmed? And Also vertically, we have three areas. We have input. Okay, this is for controls that are going to get data. Output, these are when we're going to display output, calculated output. Okay, and user commands, these are usually buttons, and this is when we want the program to do something. Okay, and by the way, user commands don't have to just be buttons. There could be events that happen with any one of these. Okay, so but a user command is when somebody specifically tells the program to do something. These can happen at random. Okay, if you program it such. Once all of the user tasks have been determined, the developer should decide the user interface controls that they will use. You will start with the following three windows formed. A label is used to display captions, which are usually descriptions of a text box, okay? Or just a description. It's also good to use the label control to display output results the user will not be able to modify. Okay. Remember, a label, the user cannot modify that. A text box, on the other hand, is used for data entry for a whole slew of things. And again, the developer, we usually have a caption, this label, just left or above the text box so that the user knows what to enter. We see an example here of name. The next control is used when a user action or a program function has to take place. For example, calculate total, print orders, exit application, clear the order, and often, not always, but often a control that is used is the button. Okay, and the greatest example of that is, of course, the submit button. And here's just an example of how to name some of your objects or controls in your form. We're using the Hungarian notation with the Pascal casing. And again, this is very similar to the what we used to call camel case. Every start of a new word is uppercase. But notice how we've used LBL for labels, TXT for text boxes, BTN for buttons, PIC for pictures, CBO for combo list box, LST for a list box, and RDO for a radio button. Okay, so what we're going to try to do now is we're going to complete this toe chart, and for this question right here, this computer program right here. Okay, so we're going to do that. But first I wanted to go over a few things. The event column, and we've seen this right here. The event column is a special column that actually kicks off programming code that usually you define as part of a class, and it's always associated with one of the objects. For example, a button class had been written by a Microsoft engineer that will raise an event anytime the button object is clicked by the user. Therefore, the following event procedure will be executed anytime the user clicks. So if they click, when they click BTN exit button, okay, notice the underscore click. This is a general procedure. If you double click on any button, it's going to create this procedure. It's going to be the name of the button and then underscore click. Okay. And what your job will be is to fill the stuff in between the braces. In this case, when they hit the exit button and they click the exit button, we want to close this form. And this is just the current form that you are in, and it will actually close it. Okay. This is but this code is code that you wrote. There's a comment there, and this is actually a C# command. All right. We're not going to do this one. That's going to be on a separate video. But let's go ahead and fill this out. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to minimize this. Okay. I'm going to get rid of this, and we're going to take this over here. And we bring up the toe chart. Okay. All right. All right. So here's my toe chart. And we're going to walk through this one at a time. Keeps on bringing up. We got to turn off AI off of this. But so we're going to fill out this toe chart for this problem. An elementary teacher would like an application that will automatically display two numbers between 1 and 100. There's a way, there's actually an object that will figure out random numbers. Okay. And so, I don't want to ask you. So, and a student will have to mentally add the numbers and enter their answer into the application. A student will, the application will indicate whether the answer is right or wrong. The program will also display the following information: number of correct problems, number of incorrect problems. All right. So when we look at something like this, we're looking for some keywords. Display would mean output. Enter would mean input. Application will indicate the answer is right or wrong. That represents some type of code that needs to happen. And the program will display the following summary information. Okay, so we got the number of correct problems, number of incorrect problems. So let's look at the input. All the user or the student has to input is one thing: the answer. Okay, and so our only input object would be the answer. Oops. Okay, and so the student enters the answer for the given math problem. And again, because it's going to be a text box, so we've called it TXT, and again we gave it an appropriate name: student answer, capitalizing each new word. Now, while there can be events that happen with a text box, for example, if you lose focus of it or gain focus, things can happen. But in this case, there will be no event. Now, the next thing is, let's look at the output. We actually have three different types of output. The first thing we have to do is we want to display two numbers. Now, these are going to be two random numbers, and we want to display them. And so we're actually creating two LBL number one and number two. Okay, so two random numbers. And again, we're going to use, even though some people might have you use a text box, it's probably better to use a label and put that fixed border around it. Okay. So the computer is going to generate two numbers. Okay. And how those two numbers are generated, that you will actually code, you would code that in your program. All right. The next thing is, we have to indicate whether the answer is right or wrong. Okay, so two random numbers are calculated. We haven't gone down to the submit button yet, but the student would enter what he or she thinks the number should be, and then would submit it, and then we would say whether it was right or wrong. And we're going to go with something like this. So we display a display to indicate whether a student's answer is right or wrong. Now here we could use the label. Again, that would display a read only, yes, it was correct, no, it was wrong. Or we could even use a picture, for example, like a thumbs up or thumbs down picture to indicate whether the answer was right or wrong. But there would only be one picture or one picture area, actually two pictures, or only one label. Okay. And then finally, we have to keep a running total of the number of correct answers, the number of incorrect answers. This too would be a label, and we would just keep a running total of every correct answer and every incorrect answer. Of course, you would have to program for that, and then you would just display that number after each submission. Okay. All right. So that's the output. Finally, we have the user commands, and there's going to be two user commands here. The first one's going to be the submit. And let's just take a look at this. So once a student enters the answer, they hit the submit button. There's going to be a button to check the answer. And in this case, there's an event that's going to have code in it in our program. And it's going to be the click event. And so we're going to run an event, and we're going to, and that's going to do have a lot of lines of code when we hit that click. It's going to display whether the number is right or wrong. It's going to potentially give us two new random numbers, and it's also going to add to this count and display what the current count of right and wrong answers are. Okay, so this submit button is going to have a lot of programming in it. Okay. Another one is we need a way to leave our program. We get that again. And that would be the exit application. Now we might have an Alt key, Alt X that would exit that too. And again, just like I just showed you, whenever you exit, you're going to this dot close method. This is the current form that you're in, and the dot close method would close that form. That would be how you would exit the application. Now, we could have other things in here. We could have, for example, we could say, we could have a button to display. Display might be the wrong word. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it could be display or generate new random numbers. Okay. Now we didn't ask for that, but it could be that showing up in black. So let me just change the font here. You know, and this would be something like VTM guy random numbers. Okay. Something like that. And then it would be a click event too. Okay. All these are click events, by the way. So this is a typical toe chart. We're going to do one here. Okay. You're going to do one. We're going to end up doing one for our first exercise. Okay. And we've already done it for you, but you're going to start writing this program in from after you have loaded the lecture zip file into an appropriate area. And I'm going to go over that. I'm going to give you a video on that. And then we're going to also have a second lab for this that I will go over later as well. Okay. So, but I wanted to get you going with the initial part of the chapter 2 and 3. So again, you know, we can talk about anything on Monday, but I wanted to get you going. So that's what I have for you. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to close out right now, and I'm going to give you additional videos on the labs. So hopefully you have a good rest of your day, and I will see you soon.